What we're really passionate about is helping brands, and specifically I'll say small businesses, startups, and solopreneurs build powerful online reputations. And then consistency of execution, it's showing that you can show up again and again. When I go to somebody's blog and they haven't updated it in 4 years, I think they're not trying to grow their business. Like, they don't have any interest in really trying to consistently show up. Content creation, social media, marketing, etc. All these are full-time jobs, but they shouldn't be your full-time job because you already have one. You're leading your company, you're running your company, you're doing operations, you're trying to grow, you're trying to get leads, you're trying to do all these different things. You can do that and choose those things, because I don't think that everybody needs everything all the time. Because if you're looking at a holistic presence, you can spend your money in different places at different times in order to make the most of it.
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Savannah Abney, the co-founder of The Breezy Company. 6 years ago, Savannah saw a critical need for small businesses and solopreneurs to build strong online reputations, but she noticed a big gap in the market for affordable, holistic solutions. So she teamed up with a former colleague to launch The Breezy Company. Their mission? To empower small businesses, startups, and solopreneurs to build powerful online reputations that truly position them for growth. If you're looking to make your mark online, you won't want to miss this. So Savannah, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I can tell from the conversation that we already had, the brief one before we started recording, this is going to be an amazing conversation. So thank you for being here today, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So why don't we start off? We heard a little bit about what you do in the intro, but I want to hear it from you. What are your 4 pillars? What is your specific version of marketing, and how do you do it differently?
Yeah, at the Breezy Company, what we're really passionate about is helping brands, and specifically I'll say small businesses, startups, and solopreneurs build powerful online reputations. And what an online reputation really is it's the culmination of every piece of digital collateral you have: your website, your socials, the podcast you're on, your YouTube channel, the publications that you try to get into, the webinars that you host or you're a part of. All of these things are signaling to your audience who you are and if you can be trusted, and if you are the go-to source or choice for helping them solve their problem. The 4 pillars we really kind of focus on, and I think about them more as a rubric. That's kind of how I've started to consider them. Is it's like, okay, when these 4 things are working really well together, that means my reputation is probably doing pretty well. My presence is strong. And that's quality of impression, credibility of expertise, authority in the marketplace, and consistency of execution. Really simply put, for the 4 of these, quality of impression, what kind of first impression are you giving your audience when they land on your socials, when they land on your site? Is it these people can be trusted, or I am not giving them my money ever because the design is terrible, the message doesn't make sense, it doesn't speak to me, they don't seem professional, whatever the case might be. And a lot of times too, on that one, it's subconscious. It's not necessarily that somebody goes to a site and automatically goes, this is an ugly design, they're not a good company. It's not that they think consciously about that, but these are these signals that you're giving somebody about how seriously you take your own business. And there's credibility. Do you actually know what you're talking about? And are you showing what you know? It's not enough to be knowledgeable. I have worked with so many subject matter experts over the years that are incredibly intelligent. They know their space so well, but they never show how much they know. So how is anybody going to understand that they have all this, to offer? Authority in the marketplace is kind of a third-party stamp of approval. Are you the go-to source? Not just are you credible, not just do you know what you're talking about, you put it forth a good impression, you are the choice. When you reach for a Kleenex, it's really actually a Kleenex, but you call it that because that's the authority in facial tissue, right? It's like what we call it because we've gotten so used to that's the main thing. So that's authority. And then consistency of execution, it's showing that you can show up again and again. When I go to somebody's blog and they haven't updated it in 4 years, I think they're not trying to grow their business. Like, they don't have any interest in really trying to consistently show up. And so you're signaling things with your lack of consistency, whether it's lack of professionalism, lack of growth, possibly even, are they going to get back to me? Are they going to consistently show up for my business? I'm not sure. And again, some of this is subconscious, but you're signaling all these things with your presence. And those are sort of the main things that we focus on. We do that for a lot of different tactics and a lot of different ways, but that's what we're really focused on at the Breezy Company.
And I think that's something that I see regularly, especially when I'm looking at other people doing keynotes and stuff. One of the major things that this is the way that I can say, hey, let me help you out with this is, first of all, let's start off with a joke that I heard once. And there was two people were talking. One person was telling the other, have you ever met anyone who was truly brilliant, but they couldn't express themselves to save their lives? And the other person goes, have you met an engineer?
That's a good one, honestly.
And I think it really ties up a lot of entrepreneurs. We're very good at what we do, but breaking that message down so that mere mortals can understand it, is a little bit different.
Yeah, right.
And it can be very difficult. I had a chat with a friend of mine, Chris, who I helped build some companies with, and he was frustrated one day. He's like, why aren't people getting this? And I'm like, because you've been doing it for 15 years. You can jump from point A to point F in a single bound. Others need B, C, D, and E, right?
Yes. We have this same conversation all the time. Like one of our content creators, one of our staff members will be working with a client and they'll say, well, what about this? Like, how does this work? They're like, oh, well, that's elementary. Everybody understands that. We don't need to talk about that in our content. I'm like, well, to you, but not to your audience. Like, it's helping people understand, like, people don't know what they don't know. And just because you've known this for 15 years doesn't mean anybody else understands it.
Yeah. Teach somebody to tie their shoes and you'll figure out exactly what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Easiest correlation, because we're used to doing it. And that's one of the things I have struggled with this. And, I am an expert in teaching. This is what I do for a living, is helping me. And I was having trouble with it because I was sitting back looking at a keynote one day that I was going to be presenting going, I don't understand what the hell I do right now. And I need to start honing this in. So as entrepreneurs, we get into situations where we think that other people are understanding it. And if you're not getting the sales or conversions from it, that's something you need to look at is, do people really understand it? Yeah. I used to have, when I first started, my very first professional job was as a programmer for a small med tech startup. And we had this one receptionist, Joanne. Joanne was a sweet person, awesome human. But she really sucked at tech, like really, really bad. And so my goal as a developer was, if I can create a piece of software that she can understand quickly with minimal training, it has passed the Joanne test and it works. So outside of my head as a developer, because I knew what was going to happen, I knew how it was going to work, she would be able to break it and I'd figure out where the holes were. And I think we need that in our lives too. We need a Joanne. We need somebody to kind of say, here's something you need to look at from the outside perspective.
There's a leadership lesson in that too, I think, because if you think that, you keep saying these things over and over again to your team and they're not getting it, the immediate reaction is frustration. I'm like, why aren't they getting it? But the first thing should be to look at yourself and go, how am I not being clear? I'm not being clear enough somehow for my team to understand this, and for somebody and to have the culture where somebody can go, hey, you're not being clear enough. Like, that's actually the problem. Like, we're not getting it. And thankfully I have those people who tell me those things. But I think in marketing, it works the exact same way. It's like, well, I'm not getting leads from this. I'm not getting engagement. Or I'm not getting conversion, whatever. Okay, well, let's look internally first instead of being frustrated with the market or frustrated with things that you honestly can't control. There's just so much of this you can't control. Like, let's try to control what we can and focus on those things and see where we can get more clarity.
Yeah, and I don't know if you found this too, but I found it to be half art, half science, half like luck.
It's all those things. Annie, I think that's the thing that I'm most frustrated with, like LinkedIn in general and like the marketing space in general, is everybody has the answer, apparently. I've been doing this for close to 10 years and I don't have the answer, but they all have the answer. Apparently there's all this vibrato that's like, just do this, just do that, and it'll work. And I'm like, no, it might not. Like, these promises and these like clear, guidelines. It's like, it's a little bit science, and you track data and you look at these things and you work from it, but also it's a little bit of an art. And it's also a little bit like, just keep pounding the pavement, just keep working. Like, I saw this quote the other day from one of my favorite follows on Instagram. It's called, his handle is Die Without Regrets. And he said, pain is the filter, few pass it. And that actually is it. Can you just keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when it sucks, even when it's not working? Can you just keep showing up? Eventually, things kind of start to go in the direction that you want if you can keep doing that.
Exactly. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who's been founding companies for 30 some odd years, exited a ton of companies. And it's funny, he's now building his next company and going through exactly the same things that, the person who starts does. And the difference from him is he just keeps showing up. Just go, keep going, keep going. And it's going to suck. And it's not going to, if it was easy, 1,000 people would be doing it. Everyone
absolutely.
would be doing it. There's a difference.
you can feel like being a founder is really common when you're in this bubble. Like if you
Yeah.
spend time on LinkedIn or Instagram to a degree, to Substack, whatever, and you're in these business spaces, you kind of feel like, well, everybody's a founder, right? Starting a company. We're actually a really small percentage of the population. Like far fewer people do this than you think.
Yeah.
And I think you got to remember that that's a really cool thing that we have. It's special. It's a privilege. But it's also really hard. And most people most people don't want to deal with the risk and the potential failure and all the things that come with it, but the reward feels bigger and better than anything I could have experienced working for somebody else.
Yeah, this is the taxes you have to pay figuratively on
Entry
having a life that
entry
you want.
level fee.
Yeah, this is the toll you have to pay to get to the
Yes.
life that you want with actually being able to have
Absolutely.
the freedom. That's it, and it's part
100%.
of it. And if you look at it like the toll, this is just what I have to slog through. I go through a year of what I call the suck. A friend of mine calls it the valley of sorrow. We go through it for a year, and then your life will be very different on the other end of it.
Yeah,
So I guess
absolutely.
one of the other big things, and I wanted to kind of touch on this because we were talking earlier, where a lot of times what we have to do as entrepreneurs is pivot. Tell me the story about how because you pivoted your company 6 months ago to get more in line
Yeah.
with what you saw happening out there. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about what were the sequence of events that came up to that? Like, why
Yeah.
did you do it, and what was the thought process behind it?
So a little bit of backstory on Breezy, kind of how we started and kind of how the evolution sort of happened is I had been in the creative space for a bit and I've been freelancing for a few years. My former boss at my first job, that was the creative director there, he went out on his own as well. He's a strategist, a brand guy. I was more on the content side. So we kind of started to, hook up on projects and work with clients, but we saw over and over again that small businesses, startups, solopreneurs, who's always been our target audience, they would have these they'd have these great funnels and we'd build out these great plans for them, but then they could not produce the assets on a regular basis to actually put these things into place. Like they just could not execute on their own, whether for time, resources, desire, whatever it may be. And I was one person. So we really went looking for like a really flexible content solution, just content. That was really all we started out as. And we couldn't really find anything. We found a lot of other freelancers like myself and a lot of Fiverr type kind of spaces, and then like big PR firms that were way out of the budget of our clients. Granted, this is in 2020 or 2019 when we launched. So things are a little different now, but there was very few options for us. We were like, hey, there's a gap in the market here. Let's create a really flexible content solution. And it kind of went through a few iterations, but we ended up kind of settling on a subscription-based plan that you could get content on an ongoing basis. But there was a little bit more of a structure around it than just a freelancer. So you had the same, team member that was part of our staff that we trained, that we brought up, that was an employee of our company. So it didn't feel like we were just kind of managing all kinds of random people. We had an actual system of how we produced content consistently, but it was really flexible because it was a subscription. You could cancel anytime. You could upgrade or downgrade your package whenever you wanted. We really wanted to kind of become like the Netflix of content, if you will, like a very subscription service feel. So we started just like that. And that was kind of what we did for the first several years of the business. It worked well. People needed consistent content. We did really well, as a small business, went great. We decided we really wanted to expand. We wanted to go beyond this, but we still want to keep the heart of the business being very flexible for the small business, for the startup, the solopreneur. So we added on a sites kind of division, brought on another partner to launch that, and wanted to create a better system for being able to just make small upgrades to your site whenever you needed to, and keep it going so your plugins don't crap out and you don't realize why your site has now suddenly crashed, because people don't think about sites as being like a car. Like you have to keep changing the oil or it's going to break. Like people don't tend to understand that. So we start kind of adding these different services, but it starts to feel like, okay, we don't want to be an agency. We're very anti-agency, just personally. We work with a lot of agencies and love supporting them on a white label basis, but we wanted to be more flexible, different, not be in big contracts, all those sorts of things. And we're like, okay, we kind of feel like we're going too much that direction. Let's kind of get back to the heart of what we do and why we do it this way. What are we actually really doing right now? Like we're kind of doing some site stuff and we're doing content. We're like, what is all of this? And we got this idea of we're actually building online reputation. Like that's the whole point. And we started looking through reviews from our clients, testimonials. We started asking questions, kind of surveying our people and say, like, what value do you most get out of this? And people would tell us stories. Like I had a big time communication coach who came to us, and he did end up getting leads out of the content we produced, of course, but he was like, people just start like taking me more seriously. They mention my social presence when they like talk to me. I'm clearly getting more just a higher level of respect because of what I'm producing, what I'm putting out there. So we started kind of having all these questions and conversations, and it really came to this idea of we are building online presence for these people. We're creating something that creates a great first impression. It makes them credible. It makes them trustworthy before somebody ever talks to them. And that's the point, because these are the sorts of things that can work while you sleep. You kind of hear that concept all the time.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of stuff that does that. When your site is in, a great place, is having this incredible first impression, your content is credible and people are taking it seriously. Like they're seeing these things all the time. And all of a sudden, before you ever get on that pitch, they've already really started to believe in you even before you start to sell them. So that's what we really realized we were doing. We sort of pivoted towards it. We created this huge online resource. It's completely free. It's a live guide. It's reputationpillars.com. If anybody wants to see it, don't have to give us your email. Don't have to pay for anything. It's seriously, truly free. And it kind of breaks down every concept, gives you all these tips and tricks. You can even take a quiz if you want. To get like kind of customized suggestions of what to improve in your current process. But yeah, that's sort of how we made that change.
And to be honest, that absolutely resonates with me because as chief everything officer of my company, I have like 2 VAs and it's me. So, and they're doing billable work. So for me,
right.
Social media is difficult because it's like what fits, what doesn't, what is there? Yes, ChatGPT is okay at it, but I've also called ChatGPT out on his BS before. So it's given me stuff that's not even close to
let's
what
talk
it is.
about that. Now you're getting
it's a good tool.
I have a lot of opinions.
We'll get into the. I figure you've got a ton of opinions on it because I have some opinions with my company.
Yeah.
I think it's a great tool, but I think a lot of times, especially if you're in that mode where I feel like content creation is my second job, basically, just because there's so much that I have to put out and get above the noise and build that authority and be that go-to person. Where, it's difficult. And a lot of times as small business owners, we're like, I don't have time for it. This is a secondary thought for me. That's a lot of work. It isn't the fun thing that we like to do. We're all very ADHD. We like our shiny objects. That's not shiny.
Sure. Yeah. It's not.
And it's hard. And so talk a little bit about that. And like, what are some of the clients who have come to you and have tried the DIY method and what you've seen go wrong and what you've seen be able to help with an actual content strategist?
Yeah. So I always say that content creation, social media, marketing, etc., all these are full-time jobs, but they shouldn't be your full-time job because you already have one. You're leading your company, you're running your company, you're doing operations, you're trying to grow, you're trying to get leads, you're trying to do all these different things. I have almost never seen a client come to us who was doing it DIY that it was successful in any way, shape, or form. They are almost always coming to us because one, they're not doing it at all, period. At all. They're like, okay, I've got to do something. Like this is not sustainable for me to not be in the marketplace, like sharing my voice, trying to generate any kind of interest. Or two, they were doing it very haphazardly. Or three, with really bad quality. Those are almost always the reasons from a content perspective that they're coming to us and having the conversation because you just can't do it all. Now, what I really think we've been able to master, and this is what I'm really proud of our team, and this is what I love the most is when we have founders, when we have subject matter experts, we have business owners who they're like, okay, I want you to do everything, but I still want to like share my unique point of view. Now that is like the perfect client for me because we can literally sit down with you for 30 minutes a month, like literally 30 minutes a month and get all this incredible knowledge out of your brain and all these different tactics and methods that we have. And a very small time investment for you creates all this authentic, real, legitimate content that actually proves that you know what you're talking about, proves your authority, it proves these things, but it takes all of that off of your plate. So suddenly what was 10 hours a week is now literally 15 minutes a week. So I think that's the biggest thing we'd be able to do is both increase quality, quantity, and just take that off of somebody's plate that they really don't need to be worrying about.
And true, as chief everything officers, that's one of the reasons we need to be going out and using that brilliance and, getting us into our spit lanes, the things that we're really good at, the things that we're really good at. And that's talking about things, that's showing up on podcasts, that's being all of these different things and offsetting, putting that off of our plates. And I think that's one of the things I liked about a DOI service. I have one, you have one, where it's like, we're here to help you with that. It's your vision. We're just here as a consultant to be able to say, we're the experts at taking that out of you, tweaking
Hmm.
it around, making it into a message, making sure it's hitting, making sure it's doing all of these
Yeah.
things while you go out and make money. And
Yeah.
that's something that I that's why I started a DIY service. Is I want it a few hours and you've got this. Nothing that's going to be
Yeah.
a huge time crunch, because time is something we can't buy more of. Time is something that as founders, we don't have enough of it to begin with. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I'm 6 days a week. I mean, literally 6 days
Yeah.
a week, because I had to
Oh,
get down to six.
pro- probably seven if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, weekends it's like checking email but like
Yeah.
even last night, like my husband and I were sitting there watching the show and I'm on my phone. He's like, "You're not watching the show?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just had this idea. Sorry." Like I just like now he's a workaholic too, so like it's a good back and forth. We don't have kids. Like these are our babies. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's fun, but I do think our service actually isn't DIY. It's very we take your expertise, but we do everything else for you. And I think that's really where we can provide some value. Like there's a lot of marketing out there right now that's consultant based. There's a lot of marketing out there right now that's like, we tell you what to do. What I find with our clients is you can tell them what to do, they ain't gonna do it.
Mhm.
Like you can tell them like you should do all these things. Here's this big plan, blah blah blah. They don't have the resources for it. They don't have the time to implement it. They need everything from start to finish. So we really try to be this comprehensive solution for them that's also very flexible, so that it's like, they might want to come on and start with just social. Like, let's just get some social stuff going. Let's get some consistency there. Okay, this is rolling well. This is like not taking very much time. Let's upgrade to this for a few months. Let's build up the blog for a while. Okay, we got a good chunk of blog content there. Let's back down a little bit. Let's just do social for a while. Like, you can do that and choose those things, because I don't think that everybody needs everything all the time. Because if you're looking at a holistic presence, you can spend your money in different places at different times in order to make the most of it. Because you shouldn't have to just, fire on all cylinders all the time, because you might not actually need that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that's important. And I've seen that with the companies that we built, where we dial up and go back depending on what our strategic
Sure.
plans are. And it has to
Yeah.
be a strategy. And we had people involved going, here's what you need to do. And that's all that they did. They were experts in this one field, going, we can look
Yeah.
at all of this and say, okay, let's dial this up a little bit. Okay, well, it's the summer. People aren't going to be, but let's dial back a bit, and kind
Right.
of make it and I like that choose your own adventure style, kind of.
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
So
Yes.
what are from what you have seen from your clients? Because I come from the concept that you don't hire a consultant unless something's going wrong or it's not working.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
consultants, we can see, I can see if somebody has a keynote that's not working. I can see very easily what's going on, what's
Right.
happening. You with marketing, same thing. What do you
Yeah.
see going wrong? Like, what some of the indicators of, hey, you need to bring somebody in right now?
So sometimes things are going wrong. That definitely is a common thing. Sometimes it's just stalling, though. Sometimes it's just stalled growth. It's one of really common one I hear a lot from solopreneurs is, well, I've always been referral based and my referrals have dried up, so now I need to start doing stuff. And my biggest advice on that one always is your online reputation is important, whether you're referral based or not, because more than one person is going to be referred. You're going to always be in competition. I got, this is like a little story I tell for this is a few months ago, I was looking for a new attorney for our company. And I got referred to two different firms by the same person that I trust would give me a good, recommendation. And I go to one site and it's clunky and ugly and doesn't have good story and doesn't speak to me and doesn't have the messaging that I needed to read to understand if they could even help me. Then I go to this other site, beautiful, very aesthetic. Like it spoke directly to my pain point. I knew immediately that she could help me. I knew exactly what kind of law she practiced, how she was going to be able to help me. Guess who I went with? So I think it's a misnomer that if I'm referral based, that my online presence doesn't matter. It absolutely does. Also, that's not a button you can push and just turn it off and turn it on. That's not how it works, especially with consistent content production and trying to build a community and building an audience online. You got to be doing that. So even if you're like, referral based right now, and you're like, well, it's going all right. Like I've got enough. Start now before it dries up, because once it dries up, it's too late. You're going to still have this major gap in between being able to bring in consistent, conversations, and because it takes a while to build that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think when people hear, I can turn it on and turn it off, that's more ads. And if I'm pushing something, whereas I think the marketing is more, this has to be a consistent base level. And then I jack up ads or something for a specific thing. And then I always have to have that base level. Yeah.
Organic to me is foundational to everything. Your organic presence and content is foundational to everything. Even when we work with clients, we work with companies that they only do paid media, for instance. Mm-hmm. They'll come to us for their clients and say, hey, can you just do a bunch of organic content for the next several months so we can build up a presence before we start shooting out ads? Because if you shoot out ads to an empty page, they're gonna be like, this is a scam. This isn't real. Like, I'm not gonna. So there is a big difference in those things, but organic is foundational to everything. It is not as flashy and it's not as sexy, and it's harder sometimes to connect the dots, but it's equally as important if you actually want to be seen as a legitimate player in your space. You can always boost posts, you can always run different ads, different campaigns throughout the year, and you can up and down those. But that foundational presence, I think, continues to be important regardless of what you have going on.
Exactly. Well, Savannah, thank you so much for being on today. We're running towards the end of things, but I do want to ask one question. I'd like to break out your crystal ball. Let's take a look at it. Marketing in, let's say, 2 years. Where do you think it's going to be? What do you think is going to be the new big thing? And what do you see the trends? What trends do you see, and what do you think is going to fall off?
Obviously, AI has just taken over our lives in general right now, and I think it will speed up to a degree. However, I also think there will be pushback on it because I'm already seeing that. You can spot AI content like that. Mm-hmm. People who are continuing to literally copy and paste from ChatGPT and post it on LinkedIn. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? This is not only not helping you, it is hurting you. It's going to hurt your reputation. It's hurting your presence. People aren't going to take you seriously because they know you're not putting any effort into this. It's not unique. It's not got a unique point of view. It's not differentiating you in any way. So I think what we're actually going to see is continue to use AI as a tool, but I think people are really going to understand it cannot replace humans, at least yet, at least in the ways that we need to produce content and marketing assets that actually draw people in. I think you're going to see people are pushing this concept really hard right now. I have a little bit of a different take on it, but posting a little bit less with more quality. In general, I'm not totally opposed to that. I think there's a threshold of consistency that you have to have, especially as a small business, to make noise. So I think we'll see more quality, way more video, AI as a tool, not a replacement. You'll see less clearly AI content. At the same time, I think you'll see some really cool assets produced with it that we can't believe are real, honestly. So I think that's kind of where everything's kind of heading. I'll be really interested to see what happens because technology is evolving so quickly. We weren't using chat like we are 2 years ago, and now it's like a core tool in our, stack. So it's really interesting how shifts happen so quickly.
I think it's the way I heard it put perfectly once is I think it's raising the bar. So the really low level small stuff that we don't want to do is now being taken up by AI. What it allows us to do is that strategy, the higher level thought process that AI is not good at. Storytelling, the high strategies, making sure it sounds right, the story arc, stuff like that. The creative stuff is what we're going to be really good at. So.
Which is great because that's what we want to be doing anyway. We don't want to be doing hey, can you make a new version of this thing because I need to be able to say it in a different way, or give me a really quick synonym for this because I need to replace. That stuff is great for AI. Like that's a perfect use of it. Or, hey, I have this idea, and you're talking to yourself, and I record myself talking all the time and use the transcript, pop it in a chat, and then say, can you get some ideas out of this? Like this was just my rambles for 5 minutes, and then it gives me that great brainstorming tool. It's when we are saying, copy about this thing, copy paste, boom. Like that's the problem, and that's not going to help you.
No, not at all. So anyway, Savannah, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind podcast.